calling this meeting to order. This meeting and all other meetings of this committee are open to the public. Proper notice has been posted and given to the press in accordance with Wisconsin statutes, so the citizenry may be aware of time, place, and agenda of this meeting. Roll call.
Appleby.
Here.
Edwards.
Here.
Rasmussen.
Here.
We also have myself, Wetzel. We have Police Chief Poltrock, and then we also have Attorney Jim Kelly on the phone.
Next, I have to approve the minutes from October 15th, 2014.
October 15th. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from October 15th, 2014.
I'll second.
Okay. Next, citizen appearance. Nobody's here. Next.
You got it all in favor.
All in favor?
Oh, all in favor? Sorry.
Aye.
Very good.
Good job.
Okay. Citizens appearance. Nobody. And item number 4 is discussion on ordinance 190-9 pit bulls.
You have a memo from Attorney Kelly in your packet. Last month, you did discuss a little bit on the current ordinance that we have, and Chair Appleby, you had some information on other municipalities. We did send that information as you had directed to Attorney Kelly. He did provide you with a memo, which is in the packet, and he is on the phone to run through that information with you. Okay, Jim.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Hi there.
Hi, Jim.
So, would you guys like to walk through that ordinance? I know that Ms. Appleby has just pointed out something else that I hadn't addressed in that memo. I wasn't aware of it.
It's another,
If
yeah.
you look at section, well, I don't think you have the ordinances with in your possession right now, do you?
We have-
I have the book here with the one ordinance here. I brought the whole.
If you look at section 190-6,
Do you want me just to read it to
Ms.
everybody?
Appleby pointed out that you already have a vicious animal regulation on the books, very similar.
Do you want me to?
You know, as I read through this, and I just found out about this about, I don't know, 2 minutes ago. So it's very similar to what Fremont has.
And Jim, you're saying we have that in addition to the pit bull and other vicious animal ordinance?
That's correct. For some reason, you have two of them. Now, this one is phrased as a nuisance type provision, at least in sub A, but sub B doesn't. Sub B, again, it's very similar to, I think it's the Fremont one, just doing that off my memory, but sub B1, no vicious dog shall be allowed off premise of its owner unless muzzled or on a leash, in charge of the owner or a member of the owner's immediate family over 16, and then for purposes of enforcing this subsection, the dog shall be deemed vicious, of a vicious disposition if within a 12-month period it bites 2 or more persons. It's a type 2 vicious dog ordinance. In other words, if there's been a vicious act, the dog's deemed vicious, and you have enforcement for it. And maybe I've gotten a little ahead of myself. Did everybody have a chance to read through that little memo I put together?
Yes, I did.
Oh, and you can see basically, we talked about this a little bit the first time I came to. There are usually 2 different ways you will regulate animals. The first is to just use the description of the animal by breed, particularly dogs. That's an easy court-tested way to do it. And as I discussed in my memo, there's some problems with that. Because you can only do that with dogs that have a history of viciousness as a breed, which limits you to, I believe, 4 different ones that can be used. And number 2, you have to prove that the dog is of that breed. Now, there's another way, and that's by defining the term vicious. And you can do that. That breaks down into 2 different types. Number 1, you can define it by past action. It has bitten somebody. It has intimidated somebody. It has bitten another animal. If it has done that, and that can be proved, then there's an ability to do an enforcement action. The other is by observation. And it says that if an officer goes out, a police officer or humane officer goes out and observes vicious activity, then they can deem the dog to be vicious and enforcement action can be taken. Normally with those ordinances, however, there's some sort of review procedure. Since there hasn't been any actual proved vicious act or that it's of a vicious breed, you have to actually go through a proof procedure that the animal is vicious. Normally that's before like a licensing committee, ordinance committee, or something like that. Somebody reviews the officer's determination. So those are the basic three that we're talking about. And in looking at your ordinances, based on what Ms. Appleby just pointed out, we have two of the three. I guess the question now becomes, are you satisfied with the ones you have, or do you want to change them?
I'd like to see the pit bull just taken off completely, because any dog at any time, depending on what happened, can be, vicious, dangerous, however you want to look at it. My worry is if we keep pit bull as being the breed of dog that we're worried about, what happens if tomorrow a German Shepherd does the same thing, or a poodle, or one of them little smaller dogs? Are we going to have to come back and redo the ordinance again and add now the other three dogs that have just done it?
I don't think you'd be able to add poodle. And let me tell you why. The vicious, in order to qualify a breed as vicious, when you look at the case law that supports an ordinance like the one you have, it's got to be an animal, a breed that has a history of that viciousness so that it's reasonable for the public to generally fear that breed.
Like a Doberman.
I believe the only ones that have been used are the different types of pit bulls, Rottweilers, and I believe German Shepherds actually have been, are the three that have been in that category. I don't think you'd be able to do it with a poodle. Poodles just don't have that history. The public doesn't, when you walk by a pit bull, frankly, some people, they tend to walk a little further away. Same is true with a big guard German Shepherd or a Rottweiler. They're big dogs, and they have a history. I mean, that's what they're bred for. In some cases, that's what some pit bulls have been bred for. German Shepherds certainly have been guard dogs. Rottweilers, the same type of thing. So they have that reputation. And because of that reputation, the court recognized that there's an interest in regulating them because they can cause some fear. So in other words, if you have an animal that's in those breeds, you can probably regulate it by breed. If you have an animal that's a biter that's outside of that breed, you're not going to be able to regulate it by breed. And don't misunderstand me, by the way. I'm not saying that I don't think it's a good idea for you to eliminate your pit bull reg and just go with your vicious animal reg. That makes sense. If you folks want to do that as a matter of policy, that makes very good sense. You'd still have the protection of your vicious dog regulation if the dog does actually bite somebody. But I do want to point out that your vicious dog ordinance, if you do it by definition, is very limited. You're only going to be able to do 3 or 4 breeds. Did that make sense saying that?
Yeah, you're saying, so if you repeal the pit bull regulation, and what's left then would be chapter 190-6, and I believe it's B, you're saying that's pretty limited in what it can do.
Well, no. B is of the type of regulation that says that within a certain period of time, they've actually done a vicious act.
Twice.
Oh, okay.
Then they're vicious. It's a one-chance ordinance. They have to have done something wrong. Frankly, if I was going to draft this ordinance, I wouldn't limit it to a 12-month period. I think that's a bit of a mistake. You could go, for example, to a 3-year period, or you can just say if any animal has ever bitten a person or bitten another animal, it's vicious. And I'd also add without provocation. there's a few things I would probably still change in your vicious animal ordinance, just to make it a little more,
Definitive.
enforceable, make a little more sense. Don't discount, by the way, item A of section 190-6 either, because that makes a dangerous animal a public nuisance if it assaults or attacks any person or destroys property. So you also have that enforcement mechanism already built in. Again, this is a pretty typical regulation of the second type of the ones we were talking about. An animal goes out and does something vicious, you can declare it vicious, and after that act, you can take action.
So we don't have to redefine vicious, do we?
You don't have to, but I would suggest you give that definition that you see in sub B a little bit of thought. Are you happy with the definition that the dog's deemed as being vicious if within a 12-month period, I assume that's before, it bites two or more persons? Is that enough for you? I mean, do you only want to be able to go back a year? Do you want to limit it that way? That would be my only thought if you were going to just go with this ordinance.
Well, this is Johanna Edwards, Attorney Conley. My concern is two or more people. Like, I'm reading that as they attack there's a bite, they attack somebody once, and now let's wait around to see if they do it again.
You betcha. I think that's a very valid point.
I mean, that to me is just unacceptable.
Remember, I just saw this. I didn't realize you had this ordinance until today.
Right.
But yeah, I agree. The two or more persons you might not want to do either. And I've got to tell you that, for example, the Fremont one, I believe, is only bites a person. So I think most of the ones you're going to find out there is a one chance.
This is Scott Rasmussen. What I find difficult to wrap my head around on subsection B, number 1, is that word unprovoked. How do you prove unprovoked? That's going to be a hang-up.
Yeah, it is.
Because if my
It
dog,
is. I think it's an important defense, and it's a fairly easily understood one, and it's one where the officer is going to have to come in and say that, be able to say, have the person who was bitten say, I did nothing to provoke the animal, I wasn't jabbing at it, whatever. I mean, it's provable. It is common in these types of ordinances. But you're right, it does require some proof.
Mm-hmm.
I think we need to take a look at that subsection.
So as I hear people right now,
And just
the
focus
two
on
or
one
more
and put
persons
some
is an
proper
issue.
language in there.
Do you want it to only be people? What if it goes after another animal?
I think you want to stay away from that. You have no control over that.
I mean, stay away from
Biting
identifying
another
just people.
dog or anything, or attacking another dog. I mean, now you're in the animal world, and I think we just need to stick to human being situations.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Are we okay with the 12-month period? Do we want to leave that in there?
No, I do. This is Johanna Edwards. I personally do not. Because, so it's 13 months, and now you've locked yourself in. Oh, it was a month after their probation period got over.
Right. Yeah, I happen to personally agree with you on that. And I personally agree with you because I got snagged on something very similar to that in another context. I never like putting those limitations in an ordinance. I would generally recommend against it.
Well, let's take the 12-month period out of it and put in there just a history. Let's leave it vague so that we can leave it up to our own interpretation and draw a conclusion based on the behavior of the dog from the past. Let's not put a time limit on it.
What was the other thing that you wanted to take out? I'm sorry.
That 12-month time period.
Yep, that's out. Got that.
All right, if we take that out and just base the vicious disposition on a past history, which is ongoing. So,
Has bitten a person?
yeah,
Okay. And again, I think that's more common. The unprovoked circumstances, I would recommend you leave in to avoid the situations where you have kids that are just being cruel to an animal and the animal snips.
sure.
That's really what it's there to protect. And again, the police are going to be complete about that. They're going to take a statement from the person who was bitten and probably do a pretty thorough job of judging credibility. And then the other question is, do you want to keep your pit bull ordinance?
Well, this is Shani talking. I personally think that it's kind of cruel in a way, in a sense of a form, to have the pit bull in there because, yeah, they may have that, they might be breeded for that, but it's truly how the owner makes the dog. And, we've had, the last dog we had before we had to get rid of him because of my allergy, he had pit in him. I mean, then you're looking at a lot of people who have mixed dogs that have some form of pit in them, and why should they have to get rid of their dog if they're following all the rules already that they have been doing? Most people and here I'm giving people the benefit of the doubt. Most people, when they have a dog, they have it for the right reasons and they take care of it and they make sure that they're following the rules and keeping them in their yard and just being safe all around. I mean, you're worried about more of the people who just have animals for the giggles and don't really care, and that's where you come up with some of these bites sometimes, is with other dogs running around and people not caring. I just don't think it's fair to put pit bull on the market when there are other breeds that can be doing the same thing, regardless if it can hold up in court or not. We have to look at the bigger picture. Other dogs are right up there with any pit bull too, depending on what the circumstances are.
Yeah, I know that issues like the supportability of it in court means more to me than you guys when you look at it. Then that's one of the things that was immediately noticeable about the way you drafted your pit bull ordinance. It's like you took that case and drafted it right out of that case. Now, a lot of places didn't. A lot of places didn't go that way. And you drafted it at a time when you also had a vicious animal ordinance that you could use. So, I'm not sure why you did that in the past.
I'm not sure either, since I just came on board in April.
Right, yeah, I know most of you guys, but it wasn't that long ago. It looks like it was back in 2008 when you did it. So it wasn't real long ago, but you would have the protection of a vicious animal ordinance if we just kind of honed in on that vicious animal ordinance you currently have, kind of corrected it to make it a little more enforceable. And then if you were to remove the pit bull ordinance, there's nothing that says that a pit bull can't be a vicious animal, even without that ordinance. So you'd still have that protection. The downside is now you're going to need pretty much some real strong evidence of viciousness, which is normally a bite. I mean, that's what you're going to be asking for here.
And I've noticed with, like the city of Clintonville, New London, and Green Bay, they're the ones that I have on hand right now, because Fremont I think I lost or something. I noticed with our pit bull ordinance and then the vicious dog, they have theirs all combined in one, so they don't have like two separate sections like we do. But
Right.
when it comes down with the pit bull ordinance, it also talks about insurance, people having insurance, making sure they have it to cover the bites and stuff. And with these
Right.
other ordinances, they also have that in with their dangerous, vicious dogs as well. Can we make sure we add that part into with that vicious animal ordinance?
Well, Johanna
I
here.
believe once they've bitten, we're okay. Yes, I think we could do that.
I guess my question for you, Attorney Kelney, this is Johanna again, is if you're a renter, that's one thing. There's homeowners insurance. It's very hard to get homeowners insurance with a pit bull, a Doberman, a Rottweiler, whatever. Insert the breed, right? And it's very easy to lie on those homeowners policies. No, I don't have a dog. No, I don't have, whatever. One of my concerns would be somebody doesn't have the coverage for that from their insurance policy. So a bite happens, their insurance company is going to find out about it and is not going to cover that claim. So are we at risk of a city for not, for basically being, do you see what I'm saying? For being accountable for that.
Liable.
Liable for that incident.
No,
It
you would
becomes
not
civil.
be. We'll draft it, we'll be careful, we'll put the duty on the owner of the animal to maintain that insurance once the animal's deemed vicious or has bitten or attacked someone. It will be their responsibility to have it. Their action in violation of the law cannot result in the city being liable.
Okay.
And they will be violating the law if they don't have the insurance. So we can make sure that we cover ourselves there.
So we're gonna.
That's how Clintonville works theirs for their.
So she's citing a city of Clintonville, here
Insurance.
an insurance clause. So then, and I'm playing devil's advocate here. I'm not trying to be difficult about it.
No, this is good. This is good. Exactly the kind of thing I need to review with you guys.
Okay.
Well,
So they are the
Ours-
owners of the dog then are
Pitbull too, it has
are,
insurance on
um,
it.
responsible to prove to the city then that they have insurance and their insurance company has knowledge of this? Is that a fair question?
Yeah, they will be required to have insurance. I don't know that we're going to ask them to prove it. I'm going to give that some thought, and I'll be prepared to explain to you what I decide to recommend to you next time as to what's the best way of doing it.
Sure.
I think the cleanest way is to simply put the burden on the owner to have the insurance. Otherwise, we develop a record-keeping nightmare for ourselves.
Right.
Like you said, you're going to have renters and everything else. People are in and out.
Mm-hmm.
It's very
Yeah.
difficult to keep
And
up
I
with.
think that's
On the other
fair.
hand, there's nothing wrong with saying if you have an animal, you're required to insure it. And we could even tie it into licensing for that matter.
And I can just add to that too, cause like with our dog that just passed away, she was a mix. And we actually, the insurance company, we had to send something in from the vet with her being a mix. Just to show that, she hadn't had any history or anything in order for us to get homeowners insurance.
Mm-hmm. What that insurance provision does is when responsible people find out about it and there's been an attack, normally they can't get insurance again, and responsible people will sometimes just either get the dog out in the country or dispose of it.
Right.
I know that happened in Green Bay a few years back when I used to enforce it. And that was before they went to the ordinance they have now, by the way. They had a different ordinance a while back.
Do you have any questions on it?
Do you guys have any other questions or comments on revising, potentially repealing one section, fortifying the other? What's probably gonna happen is you'll refer it back to Attorney Kelly to draft or amend
An ordinance.
probably one or two ordinances, because you got two sections, 196 and 199. And then it'll probably come back to you for review. Attorney Kelly, is there anything that you need clarified with any wishes or feelings on how to regulate this?
I think I have a pretty good idea of the consensus of the committee members. What I am going to put into form for you guys to look at and discuss at your next meeting, I'm going to repeal the pit bull regulation altogether. I'm going to change the vicious animal regulation to make it 1 bite, no time limit, and then I'm going to fashion an insurance provision. That's going to take a little thought, but I'm going to fashion an insurance provision so that any animal that has been deemed vicious because it's done 1 bite is required to be insured in the city and place that on the owner. And then I'll present that to you folks. I'll send it to you folks for comment, and if there's anything else that comes up, we should be able to just patch it up at that point.
1 bite being unprovoked as determined by an investigation?
Unless provoked, yeah.
And there'll have to be a determination made as to what the provocation was, correct?
I'm sorry I didn't catch that last part.
Then there will have to be a determination made to find out whether or not the animal was provoked or not, correct?
Correct.
And who will do that? The police officer?
The court, when the animal does bite.
It's whoever would be enforcing the
Yeah.
law. Probably the
I
police
see what you're
officer.
saying. If we're looking back at the past history, how would we determine that?
I want to leave it open for discretion as well.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear again.
I want to leave that ordinance a little bit open to the discretion of the law enforcement officer as well.
Yep. Well, he will have discretion as to whether he would go ahead and enforce the ordinance.
Okay.
Any more questions on that?
So do we need a record of a motion, or is this?
No, you made a motion at your last meeting to refer it to Attorney Kelly.
So he's just going to,
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
I would imagine the same motion with the clarification you've given me. I'm in a position to put something together for you to consider.
Okay,
There you go.
great, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Take care now.
All right,
Yes,
thanks,
you.
Jim.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeannie. Okay.
Anything else on the discussion of the pit bull ordinance?
Yeah, I'd like to, Jerry, do you think we're on the right track with clarification on this? I'd like your opinion.
Yeah,
I do. I personally have a problem with the breed of the dog being identified, just because of what I do outside of my full-time job. I see all sorts of pit bulls and Rottweilers and German Shepherds, and a lot of them are just nice family pets. And my Molly that I just adopted, she's got a little bit of that blockhead pit bull looking look to her. She's more lab than pit,
But she's so cute.
but she's no different than your dog.
Right.
I mean, who's to say?
And our neighbors just adopted a dog over a year ago, and she's got pit in her, and she's the most loving thing you'd ever want to see in your life. Besides having one blue eye and one brown eye.
Historically, and I'm liking what Attorney Kelly's gonna do is, bites happen. All right, it's a fact of life. Provoked bites, that's a whole other animal.
right.
Because, you know, and that's why I like when you add the discretion in, because if we go to a call and
Exactly.
Johnny's poking the dog with a stick or sticking a pin in him or whatever the case may be, and he gets bit,
Right.
Yep, you should be able to
It's
make that
defendable.
determination right away. You've got to have some leeway there to make
and
that
if
call.
we do have a vicious dog, like you said, there's no time limit. If it bites one person today and
It's-
19 months later it bites another person in the same or different fashion, or 2 years,
It should start showing a history.
yeah, and we would see that along the way, so.
Yep.
Yeah,
I think we're on the right track
Yeah,
with
I
that,
think it's-
everybody.
I agree.
can do. Thank you, Jerry.
And I
What-
thank you guys for listening to me, and
Good job digging all that up, man.
yeah.
just
Yeah.
tenacious like a pit bull, you just went, you went
I
after
set
it.
my mind to something. But
Good.
thank you very much for listening and
Thank
hearing
you
me out. I
for your
appreciate
efforts.
it.
Yeah, thanks for doing your legwork.
You'll probably want to make a motion to, according to what Attorney Calney said, recommend referring to Attorney Calney to repeal sections of chapter 190-9, and in that, it would be the pit bull sections. And in addition to that, to review 190-6 for potential modifications, because what he'll do is, if you're looking at the pit bull section coming out, you'll repeal sections 199. If you're looking to fortify the other ordinance that will be left, it would be 190-6.
Well, instead of repeating everything, can I just say make a motion on what you said?
Yep.
I make a motion on what Pat said.
All right.
I'll second that.
Do you have to do all in favor? All in favor?
Aye.
Number 5, such other matters. Does anybody else have anything else?
I do not.
I do not, Shani.
All right. And adjourn.
I will make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.